we've got a country that is divided. I don't think it's at ease with itself. I think you congratulate the Conservatives on their victory, but you understand that it's not going to bring the stability that they hope. And basically because the nations and the regions do not feel part of this United Kingdom in the way that they did. You said insecure employment, you said stagnating wages, boarded up town centres, you've got a health service that's not performing, deteriorating public services. And if you can't do something about that and give people a better voice in how you can change things, then I think Boris Johnson's proposals for a cosmetic change to move the House of Lords to York or something like that, it's not going to make a big difference. There's got to be substantive changes.
But just quickly on that, is it a good idea to move the House of Lords to York?
If it was combined with the creation of a Senate of the nations and regions, so you brought together abolished the House of Lords, brought together a new Senate of nations and regions that was designed to bring the country together, to unify the country with representation from all parts of the country, elected, indirectly elected, but certainly with the accountability that is not there at the moment, I think that would be a difference. But just to move it from London 200 miles north, one anachronistic institution does not cease to be anachronistic if it's in another place but unchanged. You've got to change it. And you should create a Council of the Nations and Regions anyway. You should bring the nations and regions together. You should allow the Council of the North, the Council of the Midlands to allocate resources. We have got to fundamentally change if we're going to make people feel comfortable within the United Kingdom.
But this idea of a Council of the North, the Council of Midlands, in general giving more power to either regional or national governments, devolution. What evidence is there that that will reverse the tide to fragmentation? Because you could argue that actually one of the great drivers of the determination of many in Scotland to break away from the UK is they've had a taste of semi-independence and now they want the whole thing.
No, I don't think so. I think there is a remoteness and a distance that London brings through being over-centralised, powers over-centralised here. And I think that's been a feature of our constitution for many years. And I think we haven't found a way, and we certainly didn't find a way. I mean, I proposed a change in the House of Lords. It was turned down. We set up regional development agencies. We proposed a regional assembly for the North. But we did create a Scottish Parliament, a Welsh Assembly and a Northern Ireland Assembly.
But why did the creation
these are building blocks.
But why did the creation of a Scottish Assembly not satisfy the thirst for more self-determination in Scotland? Why has it done the opposite?
Because I give you an example. Brexit is about to happen. Powers are going to be transferred from Brussels to Whitehall, London. They're not going to be transferred up north either to the Welsh Assembly or the Scottish Parliament or the Northern Ireland Assembly. There's going to be even more centralisation. So you've got to do something about this. So you've got to reform the Constitution in a more meaningful way. And my argument is, if Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and the regions of England were brought in and given more power within the United Kingdom, perhaps working together in some cases as a forum, then I think we would see a very different kind of United Kingdom. There's no country in the world that is as over-centralised with the capital, political capital, the administrative capital, the financial capital, and since the Industrial Revolution ended in the way it did, it's also a commercial capital. There's no country in the world. New York has Washington as the political capital. Other countries in Germany, for example, have capitals that are different from the political capital, but we have not managed to do this, and something has got to change because the voice of the North has not been properly heard.
But I obviously understand your argument, but in the UK, all the evidence is you give more power to devolved governments, and that is just a taste of what people really want, which is complete separation. Where is your evidence that you're not simply going to accelerate the breakup of the UK?
The evidence is not that the people of Scotland want separation. That there is no majority that has either been consistent or decisive or overwhelming for independence. One of the reasons that, of course, the SNP complained that they've not been given a referendum was that they said that there would have to be consistent support for independence. A majority, some said 60%. They've never reached that figure of 60%. You've got to understand, I think, that the SNP's terms for a referendum have not actually been met.
Now, we talked about the imperative of narrowing those wealth and income gaps, the extraordinary gap between the north and London and the southeast, for example. So HS2, 100 billion quid, is that a decent investment
There's certainly got to be a transport plan that links the regions and the nations for the future. HS2 has got to go beyond its existing limits if it's going to work successfully. And
but is it value for money at
well,
more than £100 billion?
Therefore, the government has got to look at the value for money case in a way that makes it possible to expand the transport links that link the regions to the rest of the United Kingdom. Now, when we were in government, we tried to do more about allocating resources to the north, but London clearly has had a huge share of resources with Crossrail and everything else. It is time for the north to be taken more seriously with a bigger share of resources.
Slightly dodging the issue of the moment, which is if you were Prime Minister, would you cancel?
Well, the issue for me is this link going to take you further north in the end, or is it going to stop where it's currently going to stop?
Now, a part of our important unwritten constitution is the monarchy. Prince Harry wants to continue his royal duties. The Queen won't let him.
The Queen does a wonderful job. I think the whole country is grateful to her. And I don't think it profits anybody for MPs or politicians to try to interfere in decisions which are essentially family decisions that are being made at the moment. And I think rather than the Queen being advised by her ministers, I think we've got to let the Queen make her own decisions, and I'm sure she'll make the wisest decisions.
Well, there is a slight oddity. I mean, Prince Harry has said very publicly he doesn't want public funding, but he does want to continue to do pro bono work on behalf of the royal family, and the Queen says that's inappropriate. It does look odd.
Well, I think the Queen wants to maintain some of the traditions of the royal family, that they're not involved in commercial activities, but these are decisions that are going to be made by the Queen herself, and I think we've got to respect her right to make these decisions, and also that politicians should not interfere in what are essentially these family decisions.
Now, within a unified United Kingdom, the BBC has always played an incredibly important role. What kind of person should replace Lord Hall?
I think you've got to understand that in recent years the BBC has devolved a lot to Salford, a lot to the regions, and I would hope that the next head of the BBC understood that we have to unite nations and regions as part of one United Kingdom and not be cavalier about everything coming out of London.
Two final questions. Who are you backing in the Labour leadership?
I think we'll wait and see when the nominations are completed, because they're not yet completed. We still don't know who is going to be on the final ballot form, so I'll make my announcement then.
But will you publicly back?
I think so. I want to see the Labour Party recover, and I want to play a part in helping it recover. But I'm not trying to give advice to any particular candidate. They've got to put out their own manifestos.
You're not giving advice, but what are the priorities for the next Labour leader?
I think the next Labour leader will have to have an economic vision for the Britain of the future that includes environmental considerations, the dignity of work, because I think people feel that they have got second-class jobs at the moment and they're not given the status for the work they do that they should have. And we'll have to deal with these massive inequalities and poverty that is rising in this country. And what's remarkable is all the promises that were made at the general election by the Conservative government, poverty is still going to rise. Child poverty in particular is rising very fast. We now have more children in poverty than in the Thatcher and Major years, and that is a disgrace for this country, and I want, in the time I have, to do something about that.
And finally, to take us back where we started, Jeremy Corbyn said there was a case for another referendum on Scottish independence. Do you think the next Labour leader should repeat that assertion?
I think Jeremy Corbyn said there was not a case for a referendum at this time, and I think
But he held open the possibility that there could be.
I think the next Labour leader will repeat what I'm saying, and I think at the same time things are going to move on. I think you're going to see lots of proposals for constitutional change that are going to come from the Labour Party, the Liberal Party, the Conservative Party. The SNP want a no change versus independence referendum. That is certainly not going to happen, because you're going to have proposals for change that will change the face of Britain, and I think make Scotland feel that they are a much bigger part of it.
But should the Labour Party's position be much more strongly against another referendum?
The Labour Party's position is we don't want a referendum at this time, and I think that's the right decision to take. And I think, as I say, that you'll see in the next few months that the debate will have changed quite a lot, because you'll have parties proposing change within the United Kingdom, and then let's see what's the concrete proposals for change then.